Hello, everyone. My name is Ronald Day. I'm a senior vice president at the Fortune Society, and welcome to Both Sides of the Bars. This Both Sides of the Bars is a discussion-driven show that examines the criminal legal system from various perspectives, including from people most impacted by the system. Here, we discuss critical questions about how the criminal legal system works, its intersections with social justice, and the efforts that advocates are making to improve the lives of everyone affected by the system. We ask you, the viewers, to spread the word about both sides of the bars and to share your comments with us on Twitter, also known as X, or at the Fortune Society. Today's show is titled, I really love this and I'm excited about this conversation, Digital Life Skills Education Programs for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated People. Digital life skills is something that is really, really important for the folks that we serve who have criminal legal system involvement. So I'm gonna read you a synopsis that we created for this show. So it says in the United States, over 600,000 people transition from prisons back into the community annually, while 82% of middle skill jobs in the country demand digital proficiency. Many incarcerated individuals struggle with digital literacy due to limited access to technology while in prison. Even with eventual access to cell phones and to PCs, formerly incarcerated people may be unfamiliar with the skills necessary to operate them. Digital life skills training plays a critical role in successful reintegration, enabling people to rebuild their lives by securing employment, accessing services, and simply navigating daily life in a digital world. So, this episode is going to feature two guests, as you see, who have an in-depth understanding of this particular phenomenon. Adrienne Whaley and Reggie Chatman. I'm going to give you a bio about them, and then they're going to share some additional information about themselves. So Adrienne is the senior director of technology training and digital equity at the Fortune Society. In this capacity, she oversees technical and digital literacy programming from justice impacted people, as well as development and eventual implementation of a digital life skills curriculum for incarcerated people. Adrienne has also designed and produced digital equity webinars, workshops, and tech fairs. And then Reggie Chatman is a former incarcerated person who earned his BA from the Bard Prison Initiative while incarcerated, and an MPH from Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health after his release. He is also the director of policy at the Fortune Society's David Rothenberg Center for Public Policy, where he helps to lead its advocacy efforts. Reggie has also hosted a digital life skills webinar and Fortune's 2025 Tech Fair, and is deeply committed to this particular issue. So I wanted to start by, first of all, welcoming Adrienne and Reggie to this episode of Both Sides of the Bars. And both of you are familiar with the show. Obviously, Reggie hosts many of the episodes for Both Sides of the Bars. Now, this particular topic, you have a tremendous amount of information and insight and perspective that we want you to share with the audience. So I want to start by just asking you, Adrienne, as the director for Fortune's Digital Equity Program. First of all, I mentioned digital life skills, right? We talk about digital equity, talk about digital life skills. Why is digital life skills important for this population that we talk about serving, people who have been impacted by the criminal legal system?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate that. And so I started calling it digital life skills because I feel like, and I have heard this a lot from our participants, that they're quick to say they need to go look for work, but I need to develop a resume. I don't know how to use a computer. I don't even know how to travel or use a Metro card to get on a transit system in New York City. And I felt, and then as I'm hearing more and more of these conversations, struggling with self-checkout or the different kiosk menus to order stuff to order food, or at the grocery store you're checking yourself out. This is very frustrating for them, coming into this digital space, into this digital society, and there wasn't even aware this was happening. So it's kind of shocking to them, and it gets very frustrating, and it takes them back. And I was like, we need to really be focusing on what it is to be living in a digital society. How do we navigate everyday life situation? And it's not just about riding the train or self checkout. Even when you go to the laundromat, they don't take tokens anymore. You got to go to a vending machine to get a cart to put money on in order to use the washer and dryer. So this is really new. So I felt like digital life skills, we really need to build out a curriculum that can help them understand um, how we go about doing things that's really, really different than what they did in the past, especially if they have been incarcerated for a long period of time. The way we pay for things is different, right? You got places that don't even want your cash anymore. They want you to tap and go, and it's like, what is that? And we got new terminology that we use that they are unfamiliar with. So this a digital life skill curriculum can help them understand that, create that awareness for them. And I like to make sure to separate that digital life skills for me is totally different than workplace skills.
Excellent. Thank you for mentioning that, because oftentimes when we facilitate our job readiness training programs, of course, we talk to the participants about the importance of the different type of platforms that they need to utilize in order to be able to get jobs. That is less likely nowadays that you might be going in for interviews, but that's workforce related. You're saying that the issue is much larger and much more comprehensive than just workforce development, that the tap and go that you just mentioned, to travel, you oftentimes need to know how to navigate the digital world. Medical appointments, you need to be able to understand the digital world. Cabs nowadays, right? It's Uber, Lyft, and some other platforms. So thank you for sharing that with us. And we're going to continue during this conversation to get some more information relative to that. I wanted to turn the question to you, Reggie, because I mentioned in the introduction that you're formerly incarcerated. You earned a degree while you was inside. You earned another degree while you were outside. Since you've been home, and what I think about is how prepared are individuals that are coming home from incarceration? Because I know that a lot of the technology that is being used in prisons is really old, it's really antiquated technology, like old computers, typewriters. Having been in that situation myself, what was your experience? I know you got some education while you were inside, but what was the digital education that you received while you were there?
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Thanks for asking that question. So I would say most individuals are not prepared for the digital world. They don't have digital life skills. And speaking from the personal perspective, I was actually, as you said in the introduction, I received education while incarcerated. I was part of the BPI program, which was considered to be like one of the most advanced programs inside prison. So I was, for years, and I was in this program for over a decade. And, I know how to use a word processor. I received an immense amount of education. I know how to write, think, but the skills in which I would need when I was in society, I had no training for it. And all things considered equal, everything that was available, I had no way to prepare. And so it was really, really, it was a shock to my system when I came out, because in that space, I had essentially became proficient in everything in which I was around. But when I came home, I wasn't prepared at all. And again, when you say our people in general, I think I can make that assessment, because again, I was in one of the top programs. I had taken all the programs, and none of them gave me the skills I would need to be effective in society. So
Yeah, that's super helpful to know. I know that there are some like innovative program that's happening around the country, but it's very minimal. And like you said, you're in a pretty advanced educational initiative where you're earning a degree from a excellent college, but you're getting very little information about technology. So I'm gonna come back to you and get a little more
yeah.
understanding about like how that translated into anxiety for you. But want to come
Yeah.
back to you, Adrienne. What are the struggles that people have as they re-enter a digital world? Reggie's talking about it. from his standpoint, and he was, extrapolating out to other individuals, with his personal experience. But what is your understanding about this, and why digital life skills are extremely important for this population?
The first thing I like to say is that we have to get this population to kind of like understand that their cell phone is their lifeline. You need a smartphone that can take pictures, that you can scan documents with, because that's the first tool that they're going to have to get connected to the digital world. And, even if we're telling them you need to do online applications, they're either doing those online applications from their phones or from a tablet. So they need training that's going to show them, hey, you can actually scan this document to your phone and upload it to this application, or you can scan it with your tablet and upload it to this application. So there seems to be like a disconnect, because you're telling me to fill out this application. I got to go online to fill it out. I don't even know how to use my phone. I know how to make a phone call. We see the struggles where we're helping them set up their voicemail. We're showing them how to text messages. We're showing them actually how to secure their phone. We're talking to them about the scams, like, hey, don't get caught up. Anything that seems too good, just avoid it. We also, digital safety is a huge thing. And we also need to talk to them about AI, because these are the things I try to think about, things that they're going to be introduced to on day one. And those are the things we need to start assisting them with. And this should probably happen prior to release, the cell phone. And it's not like we're using the cell phone to play games. There are essential apps on your phone that you can use, help keep you up to date with your appointments. Using the Zoom feature, talking about telemarketing, telehealth, it's just so much. And when I talk to our participants and how they're struggling with buying food at the grocery and they're too embarrassed to ask for help, that they leave the basket and go somewhere to the corner store where they're going to pay a little bit more, but they can use cash and they can actually meet with a person and not a machine. And then AI totally is just a different story altogether. So these are the things that they need to be prepared for, that it's not happening.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. I think we're gonna have to do a whole show on AI, in the future, because AI is here to stay. And I know there's some issues about it, but it's one of those things that's not going away. And if it's improving our lives, then we have to understand it. So Reggie, I want to go back to you. Improving our lives, and in some instances, some people have some serious concern, taking jobs losses and all the rest of that stuff. But I digress. So Reggie, I wanted to come back to you about your transition. So I know that there are people who are coming into our programs, and I see like apprehension to the digital world. Like, we're giving people tablets, we are putting them on a device, on a PC, and we're trying to get them to use the device and get familiar with it. What was it like for you? I mean, you served some time. You were in a top college prison program, obviously an intelligent person, having been on the debate team that beat some of the top colleges in the United States. But I also understand that, intelligence doesn't necessarily translate to digital preparedness and digital kind of like adeptness. So tell us about what that experience was like for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ron. So I experienced a lot of anxiety when I came home in reference to like using digital devices, because I had so many things I wanted to do. I had so many goals, so many plans. And as Adrienne said, and as you said, you need the phone to do almost all these things, right? And so people had also told me to be careful about clicking links and making sure that I don't give my information out. So sometimes I'll be paralyzed with fear. I want to use it, yet I don't know how to use it, and then I'm being told to be careful. So I would have to like lean on family and friends a lot to kind of guide me through those processes. And the BPI program that I was in, it actually had a reentry program that provided us with like these reentry workshops that kind of like talked about like and trained us on how to use some of these things. But again, nothing could prepare me for it. I mean, when you first come home, typically you have to get at least I wanted to do, get my checkups. So go to the doctor using an actual portal to access your doctor's appointment, me being afraid to enter my social security number and my medical information. So it was a great deal of challenge there. But I linked on friends, even going shopping. I would like try to get cash for people. People go with me, and I would say like use the card. I remember the first time I actually used the card to like purchase something. I was with my family member and they said, do it yourself. So I went up to the machine and I swiped it and it didn't do anything. And I was like, oh, I was like embarrassed and I was looking around and I felt ashamed. And they came up behind me and said, just hit the green button, like enter or like, and I did that. And so that was like my first breakthrough. Honestly, it was like, that was a moment for me. I'll never forget it. I was in Macy's. But again, just to get back to your question, it was fun. It was a struggle. But the reason why I was able to persevere through it because I had so many lofty goals and I thought a lot about myself. But I can imagine how a person who doesn't have to because I had to do these things. It was part of the course. But I can imagine for a person who didn't have to do to use the digital technology at the rate in which I had to, at least I thought I had to, who would be intimidated. Sometimes it could mess with your confidence and your mental health. So again, I was able to persevere through it, and it helped me. And just one more comment, I also, as you said, I went to a graduate school program when I went home. And as Adrienne talked about, there's a difference between on-the-job training and digital life skills. The on-the-job training, which essentially was school, I knew how to operate the word process. I get training on how to go to courseworks and download the work, and I can do that. But it was completely different than just navigating the world, the efficiency and the confidence that one needs to do effectively. So for me, it was challenging, but I had a great deal of support from other people, and I was able to persevere. I have a bunch of friends who were recently released, and I was always able to call them and help me out. I'm stuck. So that's what it was like for me. But again, leaning on others helped me out. And I just would think going forward, if we would have a system in place that helped people, then it would increase the efficiency in which they would be able to use these technologies and improve their digital life skills.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing that personal experience. It's always good to understand what individuals' journeys are like transitioning from prison to the community. So imagine someone like yourself, you coming home with a bachelor's degree, you coming home with a lot more insofar as education is concerned and a network than other people. So even with that, you talked about how it still was a struggle and how you had anxiety. And you think about how old someone is too. We know that usually the older people are, the more apprehensive they are about technology. But even nowadays, I'm seeing young people. That's why I say, Adrienne, we got to get a session about AI, because even some young people are apprehensive about, not that they're fearful of it, but they just have maybe some moral and ethical issues with AI. But I wanted to ask you, Adrienne, about, so right now, the Fortune Society just received a grant to be able to deliver digital life skills, which the term that you coined for us, on the inside, right? To deliver this content in some prisons. Tell us what is happening that you're aware of, not just in New York, but what do you know about that's happening around the country? A couple of programs might be pretty innovative, and I think this one is too. So tell us a little bit about what our intention is with the digital life skills curriculum.
So with the digital life skill curriculum that the digital equity team has developed, we're going in depth about, explaining what a digital society is, what does that mean, why your email is important. We're also talking about QR codes, e-wallets, and tap and go systems, and all the various kiosk systems that are available, how you can access your benefits online, how we can, and we talk about online banking. That's kind of important because, you're going to hear a lot about Zelle. You're going to hear a lot about cash apps, and these are things that they need to understand. And as far as what I have seen or researched and found out, that they're starting to, some facilities, not in New York State, but in other states, are allowing virtual reality headsets into their environment. And with those virtual reality headsets, once people are comfortable with having the technology, the glasses and the headphones on, it gives them that simulation of being in an environment where, hey, you're at the supermarket doing self-checkout, and you can actually walk through that process doing the simulation. And I feel that we need more of that. Also, I saw one example where they put you on a crowded train. So you can kind of like get used to being in a crowded train and people pushing and shoving. So they're starting to use these VR, the virtual reality headsets in different ways. I was talking with an organization yesterday, and they're using it for workforce development. But once again, we're missing a digital life skill component. Like, can we see something in your simulation with simulating real life? Like, I need to get on the subway. What does that look like? Can we do a simulations of things like that? That gives it like, okay, this is what I'm going to experience when I go home, and you can kind of like start to get used to that. So I think the virtual reality is very key. And I know using those headsets takes some time to get used to, and some people won't probably want to use them until they see other people are using them and having fun. But I think that's very innovative.
Excellent. I mean, that's good to know. I'm on crowded trains pretty regularly, and it's not fun, but it is good for someone to have that simulation if they've been inside for a relatively, decent amount of time. People coming home that we're serving after 5 years, 10 years. We've served people that are coming home after serving 25, 30, and 40 years as well. So I can only imagine, what that's like. But back to you, Reggie. I wanted to, so now you've been home for some time. You have your master's now, and you're in, in a work environment that's pretty stable. How has your digital equity, let me say, how has your digital life skills improved, right? And how have you reduced the anxiety that you had? I know you mentioned like having friends and family members that you can like lean on, but do you have any other tips like for people who are coming home from incarceration about what to do to deal with that particular issue of anxiety and of using technology?
Definitely. Thanks for the question. So yeah, so to answer your first question, it's improved immensely. I think a large part was just due to repetition. Like I said to you before, this repetition, and fear. Like one thing for me, and I talked to a lot of my friends, like it's the fear. The fear kind of like is like 50% of one's ability to kind of like navigate it. So just getting over that fear, like just engaging the digital world with with the level of freedom that allow you to grow. And so I was able to do that and break through, and I've improved immensely because I thought about it that way, and I just continue to do that. Also, you guys mentioned AI. One of the things that actually helped me out immensely was being able to have like chat on my phone, and like if I'm unsure about something, I could literally like chat or Google. Even before chat, no, forget chat, Google. My cousin said, listen, man, you want to know how to do something, how to use it, just say, go to Google. And then when I was in graduate school, a few of my classmates introduced me to ChatGTP and other AI things that I had on my phone. So for me, it was like, oh, I have this tool that I can literally ask a specific question. As long as I get the question down right, it'll give me the guidance and the instructions on how to use, digital technology to navigate the world. So, and then too, like, it was like a synergy of like, not just school, but just working too. Like the work environment requires that you use your digital life skills. And so for me, it was a matter of time, it was a matter of repetition, and it was a matter of conquering my fears. And as I just said to you, using like Google and ChatGTP to give me some like guidance when I was unsure, right? When I was unsure of something. So yeah, those things, I use those things and I improved immensely. And I think that one thing that a lot of formerly incarcerated people face, as you said, Ronald, like the population we serve, sometimes they serve a significant amount of time. At least most of my friends did. And the challenge of things just not being intuitive, like it's just not intuitive. And so I think, for lack of better term, it's not so much intuitive. It becomes more intuitive when you use it more. So just being able to use it, and if we can create, like Adrienne said, programs inside or programs people come home that give people that level of repetition, then they'll be okay. And that's what I had. And so again, I've been able to improve through that.
Excellent. Thank you for that. It sounds like, as we often say, it takes a village it took the community to kind of pour into you and help to reduce the anxiety that you had that was directly related to technology, and that's why the groups, like the classes and everything that you're doing, Adrienne, and offering to the participants at Fortune are hugely important. We have, like, a little over a minute or so left. Adrienne, I wanted to follow up with you to ask, is there anything that you wanted to say about the specific initiative that is being spearheaded in like a minute and a half or so with Fortune Society in New York State?
So one of the things that we're working on with New York State, we're going to be introducing the digital life skills curriculum to 3 facilities in New York State, to individuals that will be getting released in like, I guess it's 3 to 6 months, so they can have this information prior to returning. So I think that's very important, and I am anticipating that this is going to go over very well, and it will give them that awareness that they need to move on. And I just want to add one thing that I think will be extremely helpful: if we can have digital peer navigators that can kind of, like, when people come home, meet them and give them like a tour of the digital society.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We have about 30 seconds left. Reggie, do you want to conclude with any comments about digital equity and digital life skills?
Yeah, just real briefly, digital equity is a real issue. It's about everyone. Everyone's involved. Everyone has a stake in it. Digital life skills. It's a public health issue. It's a public safety issue. It's a human issue. And like Adrienne said, if we have people to pour into other people, then we'll be fine. We just got to come together and build people up when they come home.
Thank you so much. So thank you, Adrienne, for joining us on both sides of the bars. Reggie, our host, typically for the show, for joining us for this particular episode for both sides of the bars. On behalf of the Fortune Society, thank you for joining us. If you're interested in finding out more about the Fortune Society, please check us out on the web at fortunesociety.org. That's fortunesociety.org, or you can go to Facebook by typing in the Fortune Society. This is Ronald Day, and I appreciate you joining us as we critically look at both sides of the bars. Thank you so much for joining us.